Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our webinar today, which is looking at the potential of NILS, the Northern Ireland Longitudinal Study for COVID research. My name is Paula Devine. I'm co-director of ARC and based at Queen's University, and I'm delighted to be chairing this event, which features my colleagues at NILS, as well as a fantastic range of stakeholders, funders, and people who are involved in the Northern Ireland Longitudinal Study. For those who don't know, ARC is at Northern Ireland Social Policy Hub. It's based across Queen's and Ulster universities with the aim of making data accessible and with particular focus on providing evidence for public and social policy. We have a particular interest in survey data as we run our own suite of Northern Ireland Life and Time Survey, the Young Life and Time Survey and the Kids Life and Time Survey. And so with this interest in survey data and the need for data to inform policy, we're delighted to be collaborating with the Northern Ireland Longitudinal Study over the next few years. In particular, we're really pleased that this is the first of a series of events that will be running over the next few years that is bringing together the interests and the expertise of both the NILS RSU team and ARC. The event today brings together a wide range of users, stakeholders, and we hope you find it very informative. At the end of the session, we will have a discussion section. So please put any comments or questions that you have in the chat function, and we'll be able to look at that at the end of the session. What I'm going to do now is play a very short video that explains exactly what the Northern Ireland Longitudinal Study is. And after that, Ian Shuttleworth and Estelle Lowry from the NILS team will start the session and give an explanation of the study and also about ongoing projects. So I'm just going to try and share this video now.
The Northern Ireland Longitudinal Study. Do you know what that is? Basically, it's a long name for an even longer piece of work that has the potential to benefit us all. At its heart is a database charting people and their major life events in Northern Ireland. It links together health card registration and census data, births, deaths and marriages, migration and property information, as well as environmental factors like weather and pollution, and includes about a third of the Northern Ireland population who have been randomly selected based on their date of birth. Don't worry though, all this information is completely anonymous and can only be accessed in a secure setting. With 40 years of data that's regularly updated, the Northern Ireland Longitudinal Study, or NILS, gives us an insight into the people of Northern Ireland and how their lives are changing. It tracks places, things and long-term trends across key areas like mental and public health, social change and housing, and is an amazing tool for researchers with the power to benefit everyone. Government researchers have used our data to help inform policies and decisions, most recently with COVID-19, but other projects include looking at mortality rates. Councils have gained insight into their constituents to help plan services. One current project is working with Fermanagh and Omagh District Council to look at social isolation in rural areas. Local area partnerships are currently working with NILS to develop profiles of their area, which will help allocate resources and gain funding. We will have a really important update in 2023 when the new census information from 2021 will be linked, with the potential to tell us a great deal about the impact of a very different and often difficult year. If you want to make use of the Northern Ireland Longitudinal Study database or have suggestions and ideas, please feel free to get in touch with us. Thank you to our supporters ESRC, Public Health Agency and NISRA.
Well, just to introduce myself, I'm Ian Shuttleworth, and I'm the director of the RSU, which is the Research Support Unit. So that was the RSU that you saw there on the slides. So the purpose of today is to try to encourage thinking about research that we can do here and now with the data that we've got in the Northern Ireland Longitudinal Study system on COVID. So we can do all sorts of stuff in the future as the situation changes. We can do more complex projects, for example, where we have to link data from other sources together. But really what we're trying to get some sense of today, and it's part of our remit to support research and to try to bring people together, is what sort of questions can we answer now with the data that are already there and that are already present. Now, with Estelle, who will also say a few words a little bit later, she works on the NILS and the RSU with me as our postdoctoral fellow. We've sketched out some broad ideas that we want to discuss to see whether they're of any interest to anybody. We were also interested in discussion and in any ideas that occur to people on the panel or indeed in the audience about things that the NILS can make a contribution. As I said, one part of our remit is to bring people together, 2, to encourage research, and 3, I can't actually put 3 fingers up properly, but it's to try to get people to use the NILS for socially relevant and publicly important projects. So the day will start off with a few introductions, then a discussion of some of the ideas, and then we'll continue from there. Now, what I'm going to ask is the panelists just to briefly introduce themselves and their organisation, and I'll go through them in the order that they are here on the slide. So if Nicola would like to say a few words, please, to introduce herself and the Public Health Agency.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Nicola Armstrong, and I'm a Programme Manager within R&D Division in the Public Health Agency, and I have been working with the Northern Ireland Longitudinal Study since its inception, and was part of the team that launched and has been managing and monitoring it from a funder's perspective. And I have more recently been chairing a COVID response cell for the Public Health Agency on behaviour science. So I have been very interested in the use of data to allow us to plan and prepare in the now and in the future for COVID. So I think that probably summarises how I'm linked to it, and I look forward to speaking with you all today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now Joanne, please. Joanne Cartland.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Joanne Cartland, and I'm currently Acting Director of the Programme for Government and NICS of the Future Division. And essentially my interest today lies in understanding the questions and the research potential around using evidence to inform policy decisions, both in the immediate term and in future, specifically in relation to the Programme for Government outcomes and indeed the Programme for Government indicators, and using research to understand the story behind the baseline on those indicators and trying to understand why those indicators are going in a particular direction, whatever that direction might be.
Joanne, thank you, Joanne. Now, our colleagues from NISRA, there's Catherine and Nicola with an H. So I don't know whether they would just like to say something together about their sort of role and their input from NISRA. Hello, is Nicola there? Nicola McCullough? Or Catherine? Oh, right. In which case then, I saw Nicola earlier in the chat, so I'm not quite sure where she's gone to, but she was there earlier. I'll move on to Alan Harbinson from the Honest Broker Service. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name's Alan Harbinson. I'm the head of the Honest Broker Advice Service, which is based in the Health and Social Care Business Services organisation. The Honest Broker Service provides access to linked de-identified health service data for approved research projects, which is provided to accredited researchers via a safe setting. The Honest Broker Advice Service, where I work, is made up of a team of statisticians seconded to the Health Service from the NISRA, and we help guide applicants through the application process and then sort of help manage the data extraction and the access to data, and as well as the output controls as the projects progress. BSO, where I work, we have a long-standing relationship with the NILS programme, and we regularly assist by providing access to data for distinct linkage projects. The most common data set that's provided for linkage would be prescribing data, which has a whole range of benefits in terms of understanding medication use and as a proxy for illness, which is really powerful when it's linked to the NILS data. During the COVID pandemic, data has been really key to understanding the sort of progression of the pandemic and the policy responses, and a lot of new data sources have been generated. Everything from testing data through to hospitalization outcomes, the monitoring of COVID viral genome data for variants of concern analysis and things like that, as well as the rollout of the vaccine more recently. And a range of these data sets are available for linkage via the Honest Broker service, and indeed we are currently providing support to a series of national core studies related to COVID-19, including monitoring the vaccine efficacy and safety.
Okay, Alan. Thank you very much. Our NISRA colleagues have actually joined us, so if Nicola and Catherine would just like to say a few words in turn, please.
Hi Ian, sorry, apologies about that. I was there, but I think I wasn't put through as a panelist, so I don't think you could hear me.
Sorry, no problems.
So good morning, everybody. Both myself and Nicola work within the research support unit in NISRA. So essentially, we would be a first port of call for researchers. When they have an idea, they come to us, and as a team we will work with them to get their ideas into an application form, and we will support them with putting that application through to our research approvals group panel, and once their application is approved, we assist them with going through various accreditation processes, and then we will create their project-specific extract of data for them to work on their project. They will then work in the secure room that we have in Colby House in NISRA, and there will always be a member of the research support unit there to assist them with any questions and help them through their project work and clearing outputs as well. So we're really the first port of call, but we work with them throughout the lifespan of their project.
Thank you, Catherine. And you were speaking there on behalf of Nicola too, were you? Does Nicola just want to say a few words quickly, just to introduce herself or not?
Sorry about earlier, Ian. Hello, can you hear me?
No, it's fine. Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, so there was problems with the mic earlier, so there was, yes. I'm Nicola. I work along with Catherine in the RSU, and I think Catherine's pretty much covered everything or the roles that we do.
That's dead on.
So that's all really I can say. Thank you.
Oh, okay, that's dead on. That's fine. And finally, Jane Holmes from the Executive Office. If Jane would just like to say a few quick words as well.
Morning, everybody. Yes, my name is Jane Holmes, and I work in the Executive Office, as Ian has said, and I'm leading on development and implementation of the Executive's COVID recovery plan. And this is a plan that brings together a number of highly impactful interventions that are designed to accelerate recovery from the pandemic over a course of 24 months, but also to plan now for longer term interventions that will have a benefit to our society. And it links very much in with the programme for government that Joanne leads on. So we've been working together on this aspect of COVID recovery. And that's all, thank you.
Thanks very much. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand over to Estelle, and I think she's going to take you through some topics and ideas. So we're interested in the feedback that we receive, and we want to try to make research links. I'm going to have to leave quite soon because I'm actually speaking in another conference session at 12 o'clock on COVID, but I will be very interested in hearing all the deliberations and hearing the results of the discussion. But that's enough from me, I think, and I'll hand over now to Estelle. Estelle?
Yes, thank you, Ian. So yeah, as we were saying, today is really about discussing some potential ideas for COVID-related research using the NILS. The NILS has so much potential, as you saw in the initial explainer video, of the types of data that it has at its core, and also the types of linkages which are possible. So Ian and I have written like a short paper just to talk about some of our key topics and questions which can be answered relatively quickly without too much complex linkages and that kind of thing. But we are very open to feedback and discussions today. And if you do have any questions about other linkages, which I don't mention, we do have some data experts on hand. So we welcome those kind of questions. But I'll just start by talking a little bit about each of these topics, and then we can start the conversation from there. So the first thing then is medications. So with our core NILS data and also employing a well-established data linkage, which is to the prescription data, lots of feasible projects are possible on this general topic. There was a recent report on the general pharmaceutical services, which some of you may have already read or be aware of, and this showed that there was actually no difference in prescription of antidepressants for the financial year 2020-2021 compared with 1920, which I think was unexpected for some people. However, what we were thinking is that the additional demographic information which can be gained from the NILS may actually provide further insight into how these psychotropic drug prescriptions changed. So looking at maybe new prescriptions and these kind of demographic groups may give us just a little bit more insight. Also, maybe it could be a timely thing. So now with furlough schemes ending, energy bills increasing, and general stresses, it may be more of these effects now or later. There's also the option of looking at prescription of other medications during the pandemic, such as asthma inhalers, and also work on the medicine supply difficulties during the pandemic, which I'm sure we all remember. So I'll move now then to pollution. So due to our changing work patterns, namely the increase in working from home and flexible working patterns, and together with closure of many retail and hospitality businesses, which generally draw people to the city centre, we have seen a decrease and a reduction in the traffic, especially during the peak of the pandemic. Maybe it's starting to come back now, but with the linkage then to the pollution data, NILS offers an opportunity to explore these changes. And we thought one option might even be to see how those changes have influenced health via the prescription medication data. So if we move on to mortality then, the NILS and the NIMS. So the NIMS is the Northern Ireland Mortality Study, and it's like a sister study of the NILS. It includes all the deaths in Northern Ireland, and that provides ready data access for studies of mortality. So NILS are committed to ensuring that the deaths data in the NILS and also the NIMS is kept up to date, and it's updated quarterly. And it also will continue to be updated even past 2021, as it was originally decided, just to allow ongoing research into the impact of COVID on deaths in Northern Ireland. So there's really a vast range of potential for these kind of projects, either now or in the near future, dealing with things like the occupational and household type incidence of COVID mortality, the knock-on effects of the pandemic in altered rates of mortality by cause, maybe due to things like medical treatment foregone, and also the future mortality implications of premature deaths. Now we'll move on to migration. So the NILS actually has 6 monthly address updates, which makes it really unique and well placed to answer questions about changes in the housing markets with migration rates and patterns. So I'm sure we've heard all the anecdotes about the desirability of certain housing types and rural locations, people moving outside of the city, and also the manic activity in the housing market. And the NILS can actually then show whether these accounts do have a factual base. So projects are currently feasible at the moment, but of course with the addition of time and more data, it will give these projects a little bit more depth. Also thinking of migration in the context of Brexit as well, it's possible to identify entrants to and exits from Northern Ireland. So we can kind of look at regional and further afield migration. And finally then fertility. So registered births to NILS members are added routinely to the data, as are new entrants with NILS birth dates. So this makes projects on changing fertility through the pandemic possible. And you can look at analyses by age, location, social class, education, and other kind of categories that we would see on birth certificates. Obviously with this, there is the timing issue, such as the gestational lag to consider, but again, the continued addition of vital statistics to the NILS will let researchers look at how birth rates and patterns have changed during and after the pandemic. So I think these are our main topics of projects that we've put together that can kind of be looked at now in terms of COVID related research. And I'm going to just open to our panel to see, first of all, if they have any comments on maybe how any of these projects would be relevant to their own organisations or would be of benefit to them. And after the panel have had a few moments to talk about it, then we'll open to the full audience. Okay, Jane?
Yes. Yeah, that's all really interesting. And I was reading the short paper that you sent through this. As I think it has highlighted, there's significant data, obviously, that you have that would be really useful for us going forward. I'm just thinking specifically in the context of COVID recovery and the direct impact of the pandemic on the services that we provide and on the health and well-being of our citizens. So it'd be really interested in exploring further how I could actually use some of the information you have that would help us know whether or not we are achieving success through the recovery plan or whether or not we need to change our approach. I'm not sure how much of that is possible, but I think it's really worth exploring.
And will the recovery plan or kind of your indicators like for success, are they published anywhere? Or like, for example, how would we know what kind of evidence that you are looking for that would be useful for the Executive Office?
Well, the recovery plan was published on the 2nd of August.
Okay.
So I am going to put the link to it in the chat.
Yeah, that would be great. Thanks.
If that goes to everyone. You happy with that? Yeah.
Yeah, that would be great.
That's it in there now. So what we're doing at the moment is going through to identify interventions that are going to be impactful over the next 6 months during the course of the current mandate, effectively.
Okay.
And we're going to focus reporting to the executive on those interventions. And we have been in discussion with the departments on what's being measured to demonstrate whether or not we will have success. So that work is ongoing at the moment.
Okay.
And we hope to be able to report to the executive before the end of the calendar year on things that are starting to make a difference already. So I think linking that in with the information that you have would be very beneficial.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. We'll definitely have a read of that. Joanne?
Myself, thank you. Just as you're chatting, it was flagging a few things for me, particularly in terms of subpopulation analysis and the importance of that really for informing policy and helping us to understand what's going on behind programme for government indicators. I'm not too sure how familiar you are with outcomes-based analysis, but essentially PFG indicators are all population level, and where possible, we'll publish those at subpopulation too. So whatever subpopulation breakdowns there are, we will publish them if that's the case. However, and you're probably well aware, survey data has been really impacted by the pandemic, both in terms of response rates and mode of delivery. So where, for example, there were face-to-face surveys now changed to telephone surveys, that actually has a strong impact on the questions that you're able to ask in the format, the comparability over time, and the response rates. So we're seeing some differences coming through in survey data, which are not easily explainable, or certainly it's not obvious whether there are real changes due to the COVID pandemic or whether the changes that we can see are as a result of issues with response rate. So in particular, I'm interested in subpopulation analysis to get behind, for example, the antidepressant story you tell, make those linkages with pollution, different areas geographically, and maybe even look at those demographics within area to understand the type of people that we're still traveling, the type of people that are continuing to be impacted by pollution, the type of people who will need wraparound services to support their well-being generally.
Okay, that's really helpful actually. Yeah, thank you. Does any of our other panel members have any comments or anything before we open to the audience? Nikki, would you like to comment on public health agency perspective or?
Yes, very happy to. I come from a more general perspective and I'm linked into a number of conversations where data has been absolutely fundamental in helping make decisions as we go forward. I've been in one of the SAGE committees, which leads on behaviour science, advice for government, and I sit on the strategic intelligence group, which is chaired by our chief scientific advisor, Professor Ian Young, where similar information is sought for us at a Northern Ireland level as opposed to UK level. So I do know that one of the key reports that I've been looking at this week in a meeting of the behaviour science group was looking at the direct and indirect health impacts of COVID-19. So in that case, they were looking at data which was supplied from ONS. And in that analysis, they were looking at, I just had noted a few things down just to give people a feel for the analysis that is going on, which would be pertinent to England, but we would obviously have similar information needs for Northern Ireland. So they were looking at the direct and indirect health impacts of COVID-19, and they were looking at it from an impact on behavioural, economic and health service change. Some of the things to flag that they were looking at include deprivation, regional variation, age differences, ethnicity differences. They then looked at them in terms of a number of factors. They were looking at mortality. They couldn't look at critical care capacity because the data wasn't available for that paper, but there would obviously be impacts there. Individual level behaviour change was investigated through looking at infectious illnesses, road traffic accidents, alcohol use, violence in the home, air pollutants, as you mentioned, and then they were looking at changes in health-seeking behaviour, impacts on general practice, patient wait times, impact on healthcare activity, looking at hospital activity, referrals, A&E, maternity and neonatal care, elective surgery, in-person outpatients, and they used a couple of case studies looking firstly at cancer and the impact on cancer and on mental health as two case studies. They were looking at wider population impacts in terms of long-term, such as employment and economic fallout, loss in educational terms, impact on social care, So that gives you a little bit of a flavour, I suppose, as to what can be done with similar data in England. So I would be hoping we could look at similar issues for Northern Ireland.
Yeah, that's a really comprehensive list. Thank you, Nikki. That's really good to know. Just on the basis of that, actually, maybe Alan wants to say something about this, but I did see earlier in the week that there was an email round from Honest Broker Service about a list of data sets that are available specifically to help with COVID research. Is that right?
Yes, as I sort of mentioned in the intro there, we've been working quite closely with an organisation called Health Data Research UK, who are helping to coordinate a programme of work relating to COVID-19. There are a number of national core studies looking at COVID-19. For example, one of them is about transmission and environment and understanding all the different factors and that sort of help to spread the virus, including like the sort of workplace analysis and things like that. And a lot of that's sort of directly seen in the policy responses about sort of safe distancing measures and all of the advice that's given to SAGE. As part of that, Health Data Research UK have been coordinating a programme of work called Data and Connectivity, which is aimed at sort of aligning the key COVID data across the UK and making it discoverable and available for research in a sort of coordinated fashion. So they've set up something called the Health Data Research Innovation Gateway, and you can browse a number of COVID-related data assets on that and apply to access them via each of the different trusted research environments across the UK. So there's sort of each different area. You've got the Office for National Statistics, NHS Digital, IDRIS in Scotland, the SAIL Data Bank, and then the Honest Broker Service for Northern Ireland. So there are a range of different data assets there through which you can browse the metadata and find out more about the information. And then we're happy to sort of discuss any potential projects with applicants.
And as well as kind of setting up these data assets, do you know, are they providing funding opportunities as well?
Yes, there's a funding call out at the minute, which is the details of which are on the HDR UK website. They funded a series of rapid turnaround projects via funding call in January, and we're helping to assist with 2 of those via the Honest Broker Service. And then I believe the most recent funding call is just launched a couple of weeks ago and closes very soon. So we'll get onto the HDR UK website to check that out if you're interested in it.
Okay, great, thanks. I'll put a link to that as well in the chat after, or I can send it around in an email. Just while we're waiting for questions to come in then from the audience, maybe Catherine or Nicola from NISRA might want to say something about the process of data linkage then between NILS and health data. I know obviously there are some that are a bit more complex and then some that are a bit more well established, like I mentioned the prescription database, but maybe if you want to say something just about the feasibility of that.
Hi, yeah, what we would be calling a distinct linkage project. We have a process in place for more widely used data sets, such as the data sets from BSO. So before we have linked prescription data and ophthalmic data, and we have a standard process in place that we use the health and care number to link across the data sets. There is an encryption process involved within that, so the researcher would never actually see the patient's health and care number. I think if a researcher was then to, if they wanted to seek to link a data set that we haven't linked before, basically we would have to assess ownership of that data and get possibly more than one data access agreement set up. And that can be a complicated and quite a lengthy process. So if it's outside of the standard data sets that we've linked before, you would need to allow a bit of extra time. Currently, we are carrying out a pilot to try and streamline the process of accessing data from trusts. But until this has been completed, any new data sets would require a researcher to approach the individual trust themselves to get permissions and data access agreements signed. But like this work is underway, and hopefully as time goes on, these processes will quicken up over time.
Okay, that's great, thanks. So we'll maybe then open to the audience now if you guys have any questions. And just while I'm maybe waiting for them to come in, I can say that after today's seminar, I'll send out a list of resources which you might find useful. And also please do think of us as facilitators, because if if you maybe want to get connected to other people with the same research interests, or you want to partner up, maybe if you're in a non-academic organization, but you want to see if there's any academics who would be interested in working with you, who might have more experience in the actual analysis, you can definitely email us and we can try and facilitate something. So we'll move over to general questions now and see if anyone's got any discussion points or questions that they want answered from myself or any of the panelists. Oh, I just noticed that Nikki has put in the chat that there is actually a webinar today at 2 o'clock on the UK RI and connected data and analytics research environments that Alan was talking about. So you can find more information about that on the HDR UK website. We just have a question come in about how recently do the migration indicators cover? Maybe someone from the RSU wants to answer that.
Yes, this is Catherine here. Currently within the NILS, we have migration data up until the end of, I think it's October 2018. We're currently starting a project to update the data within the NILS, so that will hopefully happen over the next couple of months. So by the time a project was put through and approved, we should have data well past the end of 2018. Hopefully the next couple of years will be added on.
Okay, maybe just another question for the RSU, but so in terms of the prescription database, which is an established linkage, how long would it take to get a project on that approved?
I suppose it's hard to put a definitive timeline on each individual project. Even getting a project ready for submission to the approvals panel can take 1 month, 2 months, depending on how well written the first draft that we receive from the project team. The RAG approvals meeting currently are every 2 months. So you're planning submission to a date that you think you can meet, and if there is room for an additional application to be added to that agenda. In terms of when it's been approved and then getting access to the data, I guess it all depends on how many projects are going through at once, but you would need to allow a couple of months if it's a distinct linkage project before you have the data ready in the secure room, ready to access. And there's also researcher accreditation checks that each member of the project team needs to complete as well. The research support unit can support you through that process. But ideally, short answer is I would be allowing a few months between approval and actually sitting in the secure room with your data.
Okay, thanks. And Alan, how long does it normally take for access to one of the Honest Broker Service data sets?
Pretty much exactly the same as what Catherine said. It takes a decent amount of time to sort of work up an application. There's a process of back and forward between our team and the researchers to finalise the application. And then when it goes through our governance board, don't have a set timetable. We sort of take, every time we get enough applications to set a panel, we agree a date, but they are sort of roughly once a quarter. So again, the length of time for access is all highly dependent on the sort of how mature the idea is when it first comes to us and how quickly we can then finalise the application and get it through to the panel.
Okay, thank you. And just to let you know that there are videos on the NILS website about how to go through the application process and some of the things that the research approvals group look for in a successful application. Just got another couple of questions here. Does the NILS website outline any ethics procedures or ECNI? We are actually, on the NILS website, we're actually working on this just at the moment. I'm writing up some documentation about how to get the ECNI approval and the distinct linkage projects. I think on the actual NISRA website, there's also a little bit of information about this. Maybe Catherine can say if there is definitely or not.
Yes, Estelle, I would agree. There is a short section on the ethics, but I think it basically gives you a background and then points you towards the ECNI website where you put your application through via that. Okay, yeah. So if you can check there, and again, like I'll put a post on our social media and on the website when we have the new guidance out on the NILS website about that. But if you do need anything in the meantime, just contact us and we can talk you through that. Joanne?
Hi Estelle, if it's okay, just if there's a wee gap in questions, I would really love an opportunity to give you an idea of what the PFG priorities are likely to be and the areas of focus.
Yeah, that'd be great.
All within the context of COVID, of course. And I thought I'd just take a wee second to tell you about the development of the Programme for Government Outcomes Framework, which is that we've been working on that for quite some time. I mean, work stalled for a wee while because we were all moved off development of the outcomes framework to focus on COVID and COVID data. But we're back on it now. We have developed a suite of outcomes and indicators that went out to public consultation at the beginning of this year. And the feedback from that consultation was actually very, very positive, both in terms of the areas of focus and the method, which is outcomes-based accountability. Or OBA, many of you will probably be familiar with that. So that was very, very reassuring. And the engagement of the consultation was strong too. We held 27 events and there were 600 people at those events and we got 400 and odd responses to the consultation. So giving us an idea of the areas of focus for outcomes and the sorts of things that people wanted to see, in particular alignment of budget. So evidence-based budgeting linked to actions, linked to outcomes, and all wrapped up in the broader research and evidence environment. Now, the outcomes framework isn't just quite agreed at the executive, but we do hope to get that agreed at some point very soon. and move on to action plan development. So actually deciding what we're going to do and live monitoring of the indicators. I don't know how familiar you are with the previous draft outcomes framework, but I can confirm that the areas are likely to be broadly the same. So as I said, executive hasn't signed it off, but there's no major disagreement with any of it. And the areas are likely to be of focus: children's well-being, early intervention, sustainability, respect, inclusivity, safety, health, both physical and mental well-being in particular, and care support needs in response to that. And then housing, of course, will feature heavily. It did in the past outcomes framework, it will again. Specifically that access, housing stress, and sustainability in respect of housing in terms of the market that we have and the people that will need housing. So that's all very relevant. Back to the subpopulation point that I made earlier, what are our needs as a population going forward with respect to health, education and housing, and how can we use evidence to inform the policy response to all of that? Is that okay? I know that was a shameless plug, I just thought
no, that is actually really, that is really useful, because I think as academics it's important that yes, we're making academic impact or publishing articles and things, but I think it's also equally important now that we do make non-academic impact too, and we are getting the research and evidence seen by appropriate people. So maybe then I just have a follow-on to that, but how then, if we do find something like important and we do have these findings, how would we get them seen by the appropriate people?
Well, that's a really good question, because civil service and policymakers are huge and diverse, but there's initial contact in the first instance, and contact in the RSU using those links, using the networks that you have, publication. And all of our contacts are available on the TEO website. So contacting the Programme for Government Analytics team as a means to feed into policy, using your departmental contacts if you have any, or the RSU contacts would be sufficient, and we can link up from there.
Okay, perfect, thanks. Just had another quick question coming in, that does every application have to be led by an academic? So I think I can answer that one. It doesn't have to be led by an academic, but the person leading it does have to be an accredited researcher. So they would have to have their safe researcher training and go through the accreditation process. So in that respect, it's probably easier to be led by an academic because they probably will already have this in place. But by no means should that actually exclude you. So please do. And if you've got an idea, it might be that I know someone who has similar ideas or is working on something similar that we could link you up with, or I can help you get the accreditation in place and talk you through the process. And we do also have training opportunities as well for statistical analysis. And we're in the process of actually adding a new learning resources section to the website. And this will have a series of tutorials on like what to actually expect when you're in the safe setting, and how to link data sets, how to do some descriptive and preliminary analysis. So if you look out for that section coming soon, and this hopefully will make it a little bit more accessible to non-academics as well. It might even be that someone has already done a project very similar, and we can put you in contact with that researcher and maybe they can share their findings with you. And it might just be the actual evidence that you need out of the project rather than doing the research again yourself.
Dale, probably could I just clarify a point here? Just as you said, they're asking, does the academic have to be the lead researcher?
Yeah.
They don't have to be the lead researcher, but one of the things that we do ask for in NILS is that the researcher person looking to do the research is affiliated with an official establishment, such as a university, government, or other, say, council things. We can't accept people sort of coming in just as a standalone researcher when. So, obviously for indemnity and purposes such as that. So just to clarify that point.
Yes, yeah, thank you. Forgot to mention the institution. Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, I think that maybe seems to be all the questions. Or we do have another question actually just come in about organisation of a workshop or series of workshops where people who are interested in partnering with research, industry, government can present challenges. That they would like groups to get together to solve. I think actually that's a really good idea, and it is something that we have actually been talking about ourselves within NILS. So this is definitely something we'd like to do in the future. We were kind of holding off a little bit because I think these things would work better in person as opposed to online. So we were kind of waiting to get them started to have that opportunity to meet face to face again. But if it is something that people would be interested in, let me know, like maybe put your name in just a message to me directly. And I can kind of look at the interest and see maybe the size of the session and if we could maybe get some going before Christmas even. But I think that's a really good idea because as we know, co-produced research is so beneficial when it's done correctly. So it could be something that will be really useful for everyone. Okay, so if we maybe close there, if there's no more questions, and I will send out an email to everyone who has attended with a list of resources gathered from today, and I'll put in some important links and links to our website and kind of to the application process and also to the documents mentioned by Jane and Joanne as well from Executive Office. And I'll also follow up with those of you who are messaging about taking part in this kind of workshop. Okay, and also a big thank you to our panelists. That's been really useful to hear from a great variety of perspectives and different organisations, both academic and non-academic. So thank you again for joining us all.